Okay, this is a great question. I want to talk about this one here from Josh. Matt, I heard there were 2 positive cases on the second of your back-to-back on Adventure of the Seas. That is correct. We did have on the second leg 2 teenagers tested positive for COVID-19. What protocols went into place and how did it work? Great question. So when we were on Adventure of the Seas, towards the end of the cruise, everyone's got to do COVID testing in order to not only get back in the United States, but also satisfy some Bohemian law about the health visa requirements, right? So we get to the end of the cruise, and 2 teenagers tested positive. What ended up happening, Josh, for me, was nothing, actually. What Royal Caribbean did basically was testing results came in. Obviously, the traveling party was identified. They were isolated and quarantined. They were treated, obviously make sure they had the proper medical attention they needed. In addition, Royal Caribbean used facial recognition contact tracing to figure out who was nearby to who may have been exposed to the virus. Those folks were contacted, isolated, and tested. Luckily, nobody else except for the 2 teens in this case were actually positive for COVID-19. Meanwhile, Josh, for myself and Sherry from Cruise Tips TV, the cruise went on. We actually didn't even know about it until those folks were safely on their way off the ship. They were escorted off the ship. They were through medical attention. They weren't kicked off the ship. They were escorted off the ship. Royal Caribbean took care of their transportation to get them back home and safely into medical care. But they assured them of that. Meanwhile, the cruise went on unabated, which is really, really great to see that. Obviously, the folks got the medical attention they needed, but the cruise went on, right? That's the most important thing right there. Cindy's got a question for us. Sailing on Allure in September. Will the cruise ships be in September be fully sailing at full capacity? We don't know yet, Cindy, when Royal will return to full capacity. So the answer to your question is we don't know the answer. However, my opinion is I don't think it will be at full capacity. I don't think we'll be at full capacity until maybe later this year, towards the end of the year, or even sometime next year. Right now, Royal Caribbean has not announced any plans one way or another to tell us that. So we're still kind of waiting to see on that. Candace has got a great question for us I want to talk about. How was boarding the ship, Adventure of the Seas? Do they enforce boarding times now? Do you think they'll keep enforcing times, or will they go back to boarding anytime? Great question, Candace. So the answer was yes. On Adventure of the Seas, they're enforcing boarding times. If you showed up, I didn't test this out, but they said repeatedly, if you showed up early for your boarding time, you would not be allowed in. They would turn you around and say, please come back at the boarding time. That's going to be the way it is. Part of that is, number one, it's for social distancing to ensure that there aren't 1,000 people that show up at the terminal exactly in the beginning and then just a trickle after that. In addition to that, in Nassau, Bahamas, there's also a testing requirement where they're doing antigen testing. So they can't have a ton of people coming in. They have specific times with a limited capacity of nurses to administer the antigen tests, get the results, and process, not overwhelm the system. So in the short term, Kenneth, the answer is it's not going to change. It's going to be required. You should plan on it. As an example, and listen, this is an example of Matt practicing. I don't know, sure it's what I preach, but it's the reality of it. For my Freedom cruise, I didn't check in at the very first opportunity. So my check-in time is not until 2:00. 2. So I'm gonna be sitting in my hotel for a little while waiting for my check-in time. That's just the new world order we're in, Kenneth. But I think eventually things may change. It remains to be seen. But again, what you want to do is definitely do the online check-in via Royal Caribbean's application, the app on your phone. Get that taken care of and try to do it as early as you can. This is a really good question from Marlena. After being maskless on Adventure of the Seas, how do you feel about masking up, I think is what you meant to say, on Freedom of the Seas? I'm trying to go into it, Marlena, with a very open mind, because how many times have we read something online, like, oh gosh, that sounds terrible, and then you do it yourself, and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad, right? I'm hoping it won't be so bad. Obviously, I'm fully vaccinated, so, the rules will be different for me than for somebody else, and I want to go into this as open-minded as I can, because obviously, I know what Royal is, what they're up to, what they're working on, and I know that they want to deliver the best possible experience for all their guests, and I'm hopeful that it won't be nearly as bad as it sounds kind of situation. So I'll obviously have a report on that from Marlene. Ask me that question next week, because I'll be back with you guys, not on a cruise anymore, talking about that. So Daryl wants to know, Matt, will the drink package be cheaper than 30% closer to sailing? I'm sailing on Freedom of the Seas October 1. Daryl, great question. When it comes to the drink package, if you know you want to get the drink package, Book it now. Lock in the price. If there's a better price closer to your sailing, Daryl, you can cancel the drink package and then rebook it at the new price, no penalty. So you say, Matt, why don't I just wait till closer to my sailing and make a decision then? The price might go up before then. Book it now, lock in the price, guard against the price increase, but still be able to take advantage of a price decrease if Royal Caribbean lowers the price later on. That's the rationale. That's a tried and true method, my friend. Gloria is here. Gloria says, hey, Matt, I never recommend MEI travel agents, but I would love to hear your opinion on Royal Caribbean travel agents. Well, Royal Caribbean travel agents aren't travel agents. It's Royal Caribbean. That's who you're booking with. The issue with booking with Royal Caribbean is you're still on your own with a number of scenarios, especially around canceled cruises. They don't work with you in the same way that a travel agent does. The level of service is not the same. Now, listen, this is not disrespect on people who work for Royal Caribbean, the call center people. They do a great job there. But the reason why I recommend using a travel agent is because of that service, that personal relationship you can only get by working with a good travel agent. That's what it's about. And in this day and age of COVID and canceled cruises and changing itineraries and all these other things, like, I really don't recommend booking directly with a cruise line, because a good travel agent will not only save you a ton of time and also probably some money along the way, but it's about keeping you sane along the way, quite frankly. So Lisa's got a great question for me. What's the biggest change you saw in your last cruise pre and post COVID? E-muster. So the muster drill is now digital. The Windjammer is closed for dinner and it's full service. And there was one more I wanted to mention. Obviously, the whole check-in process, testing, and COVID. I mean, that didn't exist before. So those are probably the big that you asked for one. But I would say the biggest one, probably the muster drill. That's, I think, the most side. I mean, that's the biggest thing, the most noticeable change and the best addition, quite frankly, about that. And guys, thank you to everybody for hanging out with us here. We'll be live again on Monday, but I'll be back here on Monday. But we will have a live broadcast for you guys in 4 days on Freedom of the Seas. I will bring you live coverage from Freedom. We're going to be at Perfect Day at Coco Key. We might even have live fireworks on July 4th right here on YouTube. How about that? I can't promise it because, again, we're not 100% sure how that's going to work, but I'll try my best to bring it to all of you guys. So much more coverage live from Royal Caribbean Cruise Ships coming to you guys right here on our YouTube channel. Over at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. We'll have you covered here this weekend. So cancel cable. Tell your family you don't want to see them on July 4th, because we're going to be hanging out here talking Royal Caribbean. Guys, have a great week, everybody. Stay safe out there. Do something fun, and we'll talk again very soon right here on YouTube. Bye, guys.